Welcome to Warblog. Today I'm going to look at the advance on Kupyansk, which is a Russian initiative. They haven't done many, but it sort of came out of the blue. They sort of said, well, they've advanced 1.5 kilometers along a 2-kilometer front. So I looked it up and I couldn't see them advancing across anything other than fields. But it doesn't look like the Ukrainians are doing anything other than fields. And I'm sort of thinking that, apparently they've added their one of their reserve battalions, 22nd Mechanized or something like that, and which they were looking to hold back when they exploited. I mean, basically they keep talking about a counteroffensive, and it's not a counteroffensive. It's not a battle. They're just engaged literally in attrition, which is how it has been, and it's very expensive attrition for the Ukrainians, because a counteroffensive should have some kind of effect. I've been racking my brains to sort of think, well, in the First World War it was pretty much stalemate for 3 or 4 years, however many years it was that it was stalemate for. So how do you win? I was thinking, well, opening up another front, but how do they do that? I just keep thinking and thinking and thinking. I was thinking, hovercraft for getting over the mines, lots of smoke, lots of decoy tanks driving everywhere. You keep thinking, why have they not thought of anything clever? Because I would have thought, if I was the Ukrainians, I would have been insisting that we had the greatest plan ever. This seemed like the opportunity to have the most amazing military strategy ever conceived, in the age of artificial intelligence and all the heightened insight that we've got from drones, and yet they can't do anything. Where's all the, I was thinking, well, even in the Second World War, you had Market Garden with gliders, paratroop landings. Where is any of this imaginative sort of, art of war being portrayed? I don't think it's a case of necessarily being super, super clever, but I would have thought that, it would have been quite obvious that it would have been difficult going through a lot of mines. I don't know what they were thinking, whether what they are surprised with the outcome that they've got, because they've yet to get past any. They're fighting for field lines, and they shouldn't be doing that. They should be going, they should be going straight for a town, and they should make sure that they got that town. I mean, from the point of view that they're fighting for it. So, whether that's the use of, it's like they're trying to do D-Day with, like, 2 squads at a time. And obviously it's just not going to work. You need mass of numbers. And I just sort of thinking, well, what about a naval landing on Crimea, or some kind of air mobile operation to get troops behind the lines, and then a massive swamp through. But here we're sort of looking at something that is interesting, because we've got to say, how did the Russians do this? And there's not much clear. I haven't really even done any research, but I sort of put it together, and it looks like it's just fields. And you sort of think, well, why do they even want to advance across here? So they must have had some sort of opportunity, like all the Ukrainians ran away, or, it was not particularly laden with mines. But I'm going to start using more mines, I think. What I really want to do, and I just don't have time, is to include artillery mining. So artillery mine laying, because you can just lay mines behind the lines. And, I think it's interesting, really, because the west of Ukraine must be just littered with mines. It's never going to be cleared. They're still clearing mines in Vietnam and places like that. So, but I mean, is that really, really, it's not so much that they're getting stuck in the mines, so they're having to go slow, and then they're just being picked off piecemeal by these drones. I've been reading the Institute of War thing a little more recently, and they're saying that, the Ukrainians are, every day they're taking like 100 meters or a kilometer, so they're advancing. But if you look at the videos, 100 meters is nothing across one of those fields, and some of those fields might actually be a kilometer across. So they might be taking and this is not all across the front. This is in choice places. So if they are making ground, even that, I think the amazing thing about it is that the terrain is so incredibly agricultural. And I would almost imagine that the forest lines have been planted deliberately as defensive features with open fields of fire. I imagine that there's actually some play in that. But, I would have thought, I've been thinking loads of things. You could get gliders, but you wouldn't even have to do that. You could get, what about all this stuff we've been hearing about drones and drone swarms? In theory, you could just somehow have drones carrying, rakes across fields, remote control vehicles that are just designed to plow up all the mines. So you have like 100 remote control vehicles that just swarm across a field. There's no sort of creative thinking in their war effort. They're just sending the most valuable tanks they've got straight into minefields where they're getting blown up. You would have thought in this day and age that you would be able to remotely clear all the mines and remotely clear out all the enemy in the trenches and then just walk in and take them. This shouldn't be, difficult in the slightest. And, I always bear in mind sort of the, what's it called? The humility of my position as a armchair general, so to speak. But the thing is, at the same time, I was thinking, well, I've seen enough of these videos. I don't see a lot of them, but I've seen enough to form an opinion, because you don't have to be a genius to figure out something. You could actually say, well, your opinion is of value because you can see the terrain and what's happening. I think what we can't see is the decision making. They must be sitting there in Ukraine and they say, okay, well, they must be having a big debriefing. They're being explained to as to where they're going, what line they're going to take, where the resistance is. They must be, because you can't convince people to just go blindly across fields. So they must have every time they must have a plan. And it just seems to me that they're missing something. And modern technology has the answer, just sort of cleaning out the mines. I sort of said, they should have smoke screens. I want to put smoke in on this, but it's just a bit complicated. But, you sort of think, well, how would you fill an entire field with smoke? Well, they do quite well when the tanks blow up. But they actually have, I looked it up, they actually have special vehicles. A tank will have a smoke discharger, but that's just for its own personal protection. Troops will have smoke dischargers. But the thing is, they actually have proper vehicles, and you can actually get them, as additional amounts, and they produce smoke at an industrial level. And you probably wouldn't be able to fill a whole field, but, a lead tank producing that sort of volume of, high-end smoke would obscure everything other than, the IR, infrared type, targeting. And you just need to do something with so much volume to create so much chaos that you would just be able to get through the minefields because you clear them with some kind of expendable process. Even treading on mines, I've thought of, well, why don't they have armor-plated shields? Have shields that they could tread on. If they think they're in a minefield, they put the shield on the ground, and that will absorb most of an anti-personnel mine because they don't appear to be that powerful. They're powerful enough to blow a leg off, but they're not going to go through these armor-plated mats. I saw a video where they shot at some Russian armor plating, The Ukrainians, it would appear, were sort of trying to demonstrate how crap their armour plating was. And they fired it at like 4 times with progressively more powerful rounds. At about 100 meters, you know, it's just off in the distance. You could hardly see it, and it didn't penetrate the armour plating once, even after 4 shots. And you know, it's quite impressive, really. I mean, you would have thought that they could do that in the trenches, so you could actually have, you know, you could use it as a gun shield like they used to on the old Maxims and the old sniper shields, steel sniper shields in the trenches. You could use it as a sort of a shield, you know, when you're actually engaged in trench line fighting. You know, and also if someone chucks a grenade into your trench, you can, you know, there's all sorts of special moves that you can make, you know, to put the shield over the grenade, and you know, I'm sure that they just don't seem to be doing any of that or anything creative or anything sort of, you know, I would have thought you could get loads of robotics that just go in like suicide robots, you know, like little tiny tanks, like First World War tanks that can just drive all the way across the line, get into the trench because they're so small, the size of a shoebox, and you know, explode at choice locations. I can remember in the Libyan civil war, there was reports that a lot of the fighters were being attacked by armed drones, you know, like artificial intelligence drones that were chasing the guys around in the desert. So I don't know, but anyway, it's the rush. Oh, let's play it. I didn't want to just have a blurb. I did want to speak about it because I've been thinking about it all day, and I was thinking, because the thing is, it's so sad for the Ukrainians. I didn't watch this. I half watched it, but it was a program about the First World War. It was a film, and in it, looks like quite a good film, but I couldn't watch it because I sort of got an idea of what was going to happen. It was basically a charge, and they put these armor-plated guys to go out and take down the barbed wire and stuff, and they all got shot with machine guns. And then they made a charge, and everyone was getting killed with machine guns. It was a massacre, and they kept sending more of the Italians over, apparently, because that's what I read. The point is, it was such a massacre that the other side, I don't know who it was, I don't know who was fighting the Italians there. The other side were, to be honest, I don't know, presumably it must be the English, but is in Italy, so maybe it was the Australians or something, but basically, I suppose it's the Allies, it's called the Allies, First World War, fighting the Italians. They said, they stopped firing their machine guns and said, listen, we're going to kill you all, you know, go back, apparently. And apparently it was I couldn't watch it because I can handle hexes, I can handle that, but I can't watch all these videos, to be quite honest. Not the ones where it's, you know, I can watch a tank being blown up, but when there's a guy cowering in a trench and they're chucking grenades at it, I can't watch it quite often. I've watched a few because they're so short. But, you know, I couldn't, you know, knowing that, I couldn't watch it. It's strange. I sometimes wonder what the hell is going on in my mind, but I can run these little counters around and think about the war, and all that's fine. But anyway, so I think, well, basically, I did just want to sort of say a few of those things. To be honest, I thought a lot more, and I didn't write any notes down, so I've probably forgotten a few of my thoughts. But it just seems that the Ukrainians shouldn't be losing in the way they're doing, because they say, oh, the counteroffensive is going to start working. That's not how a counteroffensive works. The counteroffensive is suddenly you take a sudden initiative, you know, and create a massive breakthrough. You know, you choose your location and you make it work one way or another, and they just don't seem to have done that. You know, and anything else cannot be construed as anything other than a failure. You know, and I mean, even the internet seems to have given up. You know, there's no more memes about Ukrainian drivers and, you know, Ukrainian farmers driving away in Russian tanks, and you know, you sort of think it's got to stop. I mean, when are they going to say we failed? I mean, I think that Zelensky said just a couple of days ago it's going to pick up now, and I think that's because he committed his old guard, and they've just got blown up. Apparently, 17 these Leopard 2 tanks were blown up today. You know, it's like 17. That was their big push, and it failed again. I mean, you know, they've got some woman in the Defense Department, and I think that's probably what is the problem. They're just spending so much time on Western diversity and inclusivity that they can't figure out strategy. You know, I keep thinking of Incheon. You know, I keep thinking of that, and I'm thinking, why didn't they do that? But where else did they do great things like that? I mean, was any of Napoleon's battles sort of works of sheer genius like that? You know, it's all about sort of, you know, I mean, D-Day was not necessarily an act of genius, but, you know, they knew that, you know, I mean, D-Day is just like the Russian front in Ukraine. You choose your ground. The Germans knew that it was going to come, or likely to come. I mean, you know, we know it's going to come, but let's just get into here. Oh, look at that. We seem to be able to drive through. So, I mean, in this instance, what we got is we've got this heavy minefield. But the thing is, what I'd also like to do is to put the minefields secret. But the thing is, it's quite difficult because you'd sort of have to, you know, drive into. In fact, I was actually wondering whether I do have the ability to do it already, and I've forgotten because I can't remember half the functionality I've programmed in. But yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of these guys here. See, these are 3, and we got all this stuff down here. Look, it's all very complex here. You know, I mean, they must have ways of being able to detect mines and. See, I don't. It's 3 deep there. Look, there's no sort of 2 deep areas. See, I was thinking I could push them into the minefields, but I do want to separate them all out. That doesn't matter too much. Oh, more engineers. Look at that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. See, you know, we're sort of thinking, well, it's quite dense here. I mean, you know, they must have had some idea of where the Germans were laying. The Russians were laying mines. You know, you would have thought they'd be able to detect them as well with, you know, aerial with satellite imagery. You know, you would have thought they might have some sort of magical laser cannon from space to shoot them. You know, it just seems that they want to sort of scrap all these Leopard tanks. And I saw one video today, and it had like a radar thing, and I just think, well, why don't you just make a load of fake Leopard tanks and a load of fake radar stations? You know, just the very basic, but just something with something rotating on the top, and just sort of swamp everything. You know, there just seems to be, you know, they had blow up tanks in D-Day. It wouldn't surprise me actually if there are some, because I saw one today and it looked a bit long. You know, I was thinking that's a bit long. Is that right? Or is it just the angle of the lens or something? So it'd be interesting to see whether there's anything that we really don't know. You know, any sort of deception that we've been. So we've got two there. As well. I've been thinking a little bit more about other things. I'm just thinking, you know, I'd really actually like to. I was reading, I can't remember who it was, Something Declare, the guy who did the Nigerian Civil War book, Biafra, My Brother, or Biafra and Nigerian Biafra, Something Brothers. I was thinking, yeah, it must be quite good to have actually produced that book, because no one else has produced anything on the Nigerian Civil War. And so I'm thinking, well, I wouldn't mind being a writer of books like that, but the thing is, no one buys anything. No one buys anything. That's the limit, risk I've got, because, you know, no one would actually buy it, no matter what I did. I get that feeling. It's not, you know, it's too much of a gamble. I mean, I've done too many things that sort of just don't pay the rent, so to speak. Just lose money, you know, war blog inclusive, you know, but I enjoy it. But the thing is, you've got to be serious about these things. But I was thinking, oh gosh, you know, I'd like to write a book, and I was looking at the Syrian Civil War book, and there's no books on that, and there probably won't be any decent books on the Ukraine war either. It'll all be Ukraine, my story as a single black mother in Mariupol. You know, this is what more books have become. But what I did think, and this is my sort of thing that I think I might have a think about, is because I've got a book called the where is it? It should be right here because I had it. Vietnam Almanac. Where is it? There it is. I don't know why I need to get it for you, but cost me $2 in clearance. It looked brand new. James H. Wilbanks, An In-Depth Guide to the Most Controversial Conflict in American History. You know, and this is, it's on the front of this cover, it's got loads of like Huey helicopters, and I know it's a lot harder these days, but I really think that they should be doing air mobile warfare of some sort. They must be able to fly something, you know, even if it's just sort of a last chance, just sort of, you know, saturate the air with objects and just have a huge, you know, I mean, this picture here, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Hueys, and that was probably a big operation carrying sort of, you know, probably about 50 men, you know, and then they could turn around and go back. And, you know, I don't know what sort of air defense the Russians have got, but, you know, we seem to have gone backwards in time. But anyway, so we've positioned all our engineers. And we've moved all our regulars in some capacity. I just want to sort of at least break them up so that they're sort of a little more realistic, because I did some engineers. Okay, right, so we've still got loads of these things, so we really want to sort of protect these units here, I think, because these engineers are right up, so they're going to be attacked. So what else have we got? We've got this stuff down here as well. Okay, let's put 3, 3, and then split something up over here, because we've got lots of targets down here. Yeah, so anyway, I don't know whether I finished my warbling, but I was thinking of doing an almanac, because you can do those things, and the almanacs, they just have dates, and this one's quite not, but I wouldn't even do it like this. So it's like, it's 1966, February 14, landmine kills 56 South Vietnamese peasants in 3 separate blasts along a road near Toi Hoa, 225 miles northeast of Saigon. You know, you could almost, in fact, I was looking at Al Jazeera today, and they've got the same sort of thing, you know, day 553 of the war, and they've got the same sort of structure, military, political, you know, under the political, let's say, so under here, you've got, for example, on this page, 1967, October 7th, Air War, US plane strikes Soviet-built helicopters on the ground 30 miles west of Hanoi. US government, this is a section, US government, at a domestic fundraising event, President Johnson says he will hold fast in Vietnam because that way leads to a more secure America and a free Asia. Then it's 8th of October, US domestic, 11th of October, US domestic, October 11th to 20th, ground war. So that is the ground war, that's the military. So it's got domestic, it's got politics, so you've got US domestic, ground war, air war, North Vietnam. So he's got loads of sort of headings that differentiate between, you know, certain things. But I would probably be more inclined to, just because I'm only interested in the military, I might, but I might do something like that, because I think you can't fail. And if you're not going to sell anything anyway, then you know no one's going to read it, and no one will probably say, well, this is a load of crap, considering most things that are published, because I bought a few, are a load of crap. You know, stuff that's just copy and paste from Wikipedia and stuff like that. You know, if they can do that, then can't go far wrong. But anyway, we're trying to blow up these people. Sort of doing okay. Let's try this other thing over here. So I might do that, but I wish I had more time to just do this. You know, we had this most amazing war ever, and it was a bit disappointing to start off with, but when you start looking at these videos, you know, you really get a sense of it's how it would have been even in the First World War. You know, we've never seen, it's unprecedented to be able to watch an aerial view of a real war. And I'm sure there's lots of footage we haven't seen yet, you know, of men pouring across fields being mown down by machine gun fire. Right, let's see what we can do over here. But I don't know. They sort of say, oh well, it's a little bit hit. Basically, you know, how can the war end? You know, I mean, if Ukraine does that badly, will they actually surrender? Because it seems like the West are not going to let them surrender. But if I had more time, I'd just sit here getting every game, because there's some sites out there where the maps are really good. And you sort of think, well, you know, they're sort of dedicated, and you know, I'm not really, I don't have the time. I'm not full time on this or anything. I'm even slow. I had so much spare time during the Syrian war. Now I just seem to be sort of zonked. It's like, where did all the time go? We haven't managed to remove any of those, but they're a little weaker. Let's put 2 over here. So we're trying to figure out how the Russians advanced as they did near Kupyansk, and we're sort of determining that, you know, they intelligently picked their way through the minefield. They had plenty of engineers, that there was not a lot of air power, Ukrainian air defense, because we've got no drones for the Ukrainians, but they do have offensive capabilities, and we're about to find out. So this is what the Russians have done, and they haven't even got to the Ukrainian front lines. They're trying to get through the minefields, which is what the Ukrainians are trying to do. So the thing is, it's a useful exercise because it reverses the role. I do feel a bit odd because of there's all these offensives, and all of a sudden I do a Russian one because the Russians aren't on the offensive. So. And I keep thinking, oh, but it's so much harder to set up. I want to try and do something so I can automatically get a sort of a quick setup, but I don't think there's really any way around that. You know, building the maps is time consuming. Okay, so it's the Ukrainian turn. So they do have artillery. I've sort of laid everything back a bit, you know, to make it simple and to emphasize the issues that we think are at play here, i.e. getting through minefields and approaching these things. So, I mean, the thing is, do we want to attack here? You know, what are we going to attack with? Can we attack these engineers? Or should we be going for these stacks of irregulars, like this stack over here? Decisions. I mean, you know, what do we attack? We either do the engineers on the front rows, the thing is we have to do all of them. Let's see what one artillery does on this guy. 2.1. So we push them back. They won't be able to just swarm in there. See, that's got to be similar to what's happening with the Russians, I mean the Ukrainians. You know, even if they can get through the minefields to the trenches, it just reminds me of Pickett's charge. You know, they shouldn't be doing it like that. They should be. You can tell they haven't done their homework, because they should have come up with something incredibly amazing. You know, some sort of glider insertion or some kind of hammer anvil action. So what else have we got? So the thing is, they're going to get through here unless we get rid of both of these, or they're going to get through there. Or they're going to get through there. See, what the Ukrainians are lacking, and they could be lacking in this could be a reason. For example, if this was the Russians, they might have a lot more artillery, and the artillery can basically blow up any engineering efforts, but it takes a lot more. Let's try and blow up something. Let's concentrate on here. No effect. So that no effect is disappointing, and I think that's what the Ukrainians have got to be feeling through and through. This, we can't do it. Might as well just try and blow up some irregulars. I don't think it's an unrealistic scenario, but I sort of think, well, it is unrealistic in some sense. What else should we, what actually happened with this Kupyansk advance? We could play with the counters until we get the correct balance, but somehow they just managed to break through. What was it? Because the Ukrainians have got all their, I was actually looking up, stealth fighters. And I was reading about that today, thinking, why don't they use a load of stealth fighters, stealth drones? Because I actually saw on the south front side, they got I think it's the Iranian range of stealth drones, and they're quite small. And I was just thinking, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have these things are propeller driven, so their maximum speed probably about 300 or 400 kilometers an hour. And they're going to swarm. You read all this stuff about, drone swarms. Have we seen any of that? No. We've seen a few, drone attacks on some of the Ukrainian cities, but not swarms, just large numbers. But, you might have thought that they were just, this is what I thought the Ukrainians should have done. They should have just said, right, okay, well, we've done it. We spent this 6 months, we got a few Leopard tanks, but what we actually did, we got 20,000 stealth drones, and we just used them to use magic technology to demine the routes, go in there and stealthily kill all the people in the trenches, and then go from trench, because what they're doing, they're going from trench to trench, regrouping. I don't really think they should be doing that. I think they should be inserting near to their objective city, and then using everything in their power to clear a path, not just to the first trench, all the way through, because the Russians have got to be getting from somewhere. So it can't be that difficult to find out what route the Russians are using to get to their trenches, because if they've got to run away, they've got to know a clean route. But so for example, if this was what you wanted, this town, you wouldn't just fight to here and just leave it. This is not a good example, because what they're saying is the true Russian lines. The thing is, what you're fighting for is not hedgerows, because you can win or lose those so quickly. They're fighting for objectives and towns, and I would have thought that if you wanted to prove that the Ukrainian counteroffensive was working or effective or even useful, they would be on the doors of a town right now, and they're not. They haven't taken any towns. I think they've taken a couple of villages, and those are in the earlier days. But yeah, that's just me warbling, you sort of think then stealth drones, why haven't we seen anything like that? Stealth drones, apparently you can't, apparently there's no such thing as invisibility, they're just hard to detect. But, if they're stealth and they're swarming, surely they could be, raining hell down on the Russians. But clearly they're just using level stupid, really. So that's all the Ukrainians can do. Now they've got the Russians. Right, so let's see what we can do, because I'm not sure how this anti-mine stuff works. I think it's automatic. We're not going to break through there. but we can break through here. So I was watching this thing on YouTube about going over minefields in hovercraft, and I was thinking, you know, what about jetpacks? What about those little hand gliders with motors on them? You know, I mean, you could have 20 of those lift off in the middle of the night, you know, protected with drones. I don't know. I just sort of thinking and sort of like, well, has no one in the Ukraine, you know, I thought all the top people in the Pentagon were also thinking. That's what I thought. You know, I thought they would come out with such a stupendously amazing plan, so cunning you could brush your teeth with it. And what they've done is reinvented the First World War. Right, so we've got a gap. I don't want to play much more. It's getting late. I'm just warbling. But it's interesting, you know, because I do really want to do a proper Ukraine scenario, but I just don't know where they're really fighting. I keep reading these things and they don't seem to be doing anything, you know, it doesn't seem to be happening. But the next time I do one, and what it used to do with in Yemen and Syrian civil war, it just seemed like I'd knock a scenario out in 5 minutes. But it just seems to take so much longer. But I might try and just get some more, you know. But basically, I think what I'm trying to get to is I want to put some more proper Ukraine counter-offensive type scenarios, but with lots of mines, because that is got to be the thing that is holding them back and is keeping things down. And you sort of thinking, well, how do you get through those minefields? And you know, and I don't think they're really trying. But the thing is, one thing we're noticing here is that these little irregulars can only go 2 hexes. Now we can do him as well. I'm just going to focus on this lot here, but that's it really. I'd have to do all of them, wouldn't I? I mean, even just doing this is just boring. You know, I don't know, I'm always one for the underdog. Which is why I like the Yemen Syrian civil war so much, really. But now the Ukrainians appear to be the underdog, and you start to sort of think, well, you know, why can't they just have a little bit of a breakthrough? You know, I mean, just a little one, just to sort of show that they, you know, something. Because at the moment, it's got to go down as one of the biggest failures ever in the, you know, in the history of modern war. And Zelensky just looks like a total twat, and you just can't help feel a bit sorry for him, because, you know, he will have to carry the burden of that with him, and combined with the fact that the war was not necessary, that, you know, I mean, let's just have a quick look. War in Donbass. This was the assault on Spartak, February 2016. This was the 2016. This was the Battle of Debaltseve, Ukraine, 2015, coming soon. So they were fighting, and this is modest stuff. They were fighting in 2015. This war started. When did it start? 2022. That was 7 years ago. The war in Donbass, which is the Ukraine war, was going on for 7 years, and the leadership of the Ukraine did nothing to stop it. You know, and everyone sort of like thinks that the Russia just invaded. This war was going on. These are scenarios. 17, 20, you know, this was a Ukrainian offensive down towards Shigari and down here. The thing is, it was it was a bit like now. There was lots and lots of stuff happening, but it was all really boring and trivial. You know, most of it was like the Kashmir thing, where they were just bombarding them with artillery and rockets and little tiny excursions. So for anyone to sort of say that, you know, this was not preventable, the Ukraine war was not preventable. They had 7 years. Look, this is proof. This is proof from my website, you know, in its own right. Get back to my game. And what is Zelensky thinking? You know, is he thinking that he's got unlimited people? I mean, how many people are dying? Are we just going to keep sending him tanks? You know, but like I say, I think it would be nice if he had a little bit of a breakthrough somewhere. You know, somewhere a bit of a breakthrough. You know, 30 or 40 miles, and because they're never, ever, ever going to take any of those places. I can't think of the names of them, but there's a little, you know, if you look at the front line, there's little towns. I mean, you know, Bakhmut showed how difficult it is to take a town. Same with their little seaport. You know, the same with Aleppo. You know, it is difficult to take a town from a determined defence. They can't even break through hedgerows. You know, wait until they're in. I suppose, you know, I mean, I suppose there's much larger fields of defence with these massive, big, like 5-10 acre fields, whatever they are. Maybe you know, they'll find it a bit easier to sort of storm through cities because the minefields won't be so easy to lay. But yeah, so what can the is available? Let's remove that mine at least. He's available, but he's not in the right spot. And his depression is 5.8. Okay. Right. So a lot of it comes down to mine clearing technology and being able to, you know, do that on the fly. And again, I think they can do that with remote devices. You just send in, and also I was thinking, you know, all you need to do is standardize flails, chain flails on the front of every vehicle. You know, some of these vehicles don't have any chain flails. They should all have standardized chain. How difficult can it be to make a welded framework with a mechanized chain flail? You know, considering the price of one UAV, I mean, those things can be, the Islamic State would have been knocking like 100 of those out a day from their workshops in the bottom of their gardens. Right, so we've got to, oh, we don't have that. Look, there's another engineer here though. See, because of the chaos, completely forgot about that section over there. So we've gotten rid of the tank traps. which means we've got a nice little land into Ulyanka. So let's just blow everything up in Ulyanka. Oh, I've gone over an hour. Oh, crap. I'll have to leave it at that.